Hi, my name is Evan Bogart. I'm the chair of the Songwriters and Composers Wing for the Recording Academy and a national trustee for the Recording Academy. We're here to talk about mental wellness, mental health in the songwriting community, right? I think it's something that has become much more prevalent over the last few years, but it's definitely something as creatives that we all struggle with in our own ways. At what point in your career did you think, I need to address, I need to pay attention to this part of my life. I need to take care of myself.
I think it's honestly kind of recent for me. It's like last year I started to, feel like I was in a place where I was a bit more comfortable in my career, but still pretty used to experiencing some form of burnout. Pushing myself really hard because it feels really scary to slow down and to take a breather if you need one, take a break, not do sessions for a while, because there is that urgency with our job. It feels like you're going to miss out on something if you're not working all the time. And I think I went to Australia for 2 months and I took a month off, which I used to go home and visit my family and work. I would set my little studio up and it was my catch-up time. But because of the pandemic, I hadn't seen my family for a long time. So this time I just went and and I was kind of tired, honestly. I was I need a break. I need to figure out what I want to focus on in the new year. And I think taking a really long break was really good for me, and easing back into the year this year with I just sort of made that promise to myself that I was going to find more balance. I've actually been a lot more creative.
That balance that you talk about, is that, for you, it seems like you're working really hard,
yeah,
and then you take time off.
Yeah.
How important is it to have balance on a daily basis?
I think it's pretty important. I think, I guess, honestly, I realize I need a little bit of support. I'm, talking to a therapist every week, and I don't know, I just hit a point where I was this cycle is not great. You don't want to take time off because you've burnt yourself out. You want to take time off because you're I'm so excited about all the work I've done. I'm going to take a holiday, and find more inspiration, and then come back to it and be re-inspired, and not because you're exhausted and you need to sleep for a week. Right.
That's a good point, right? If you've let yourself burn out, you probably aren't exercising a great balance.
Yeah.
Right?
No, because you're tired, you're not going to work out, you're not going to even all the things that you hear people say that, eat good food, get enough sleep, do exercise. If you're working that hard, it's you're not really integrating those things into your life. Therefore, I don't know, I just find myself with my own personal journey, I feel when I've gotten to those places where I'm sort of spinning wheels, I'm also not making the best decisions career-wise and creatively. I'm talking about the pockets of time when I have
of course,
fun,
of course, yeah.
But
none of us thought you meant in general.
Yeah, I'm I'm just doing this thing and I'm making myself. This was not the intention. It's an intervention.
No, I get it though.
Yeah.
Jin Jin, what does mental wellness mean to you?
Mental wellness, I think it's only recently I've really started to understand what it is. I always thought that because I love what I do, I absolutely love my job, I actually thought to myself that, my mental health and wellness was totally fine. It was balanced because I'm doing everything that I love. But then, to what Kito was saying, it's all the things like sleep and eating well and, even seeing friends and family and giving yourself a bit of a break, that I feel that all adds to your mental wellness. And before that, I just didn't realize, you get into this industry and you spend the majority of your career just trying to get a foot in the door, so that once you do get a foot in the door, you're so afraid to take your foot off the gas. And you're just oh my gosh, I'm just so grateful and appreciative for every opportunity. And you kind of grafting and grinding as if you've only just started, you know. And that is one of the beauties of this game as well. It's like, it doesn't matter what you've done previously. It doesn't matter how many hits or how many records or who you've worked with. The moment you do a new session, you're starting from scratch. You know, you're in the room with new people. No one cares what you even did last week or, you know, a year ago. You get another opportunity to start again and write another amazing song, or maybe a shit song that might lead on to a better song, or, do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a constant roller coaster.
Okay, well, speaking to the roller coaster, like, songwriters have an intensely creative, like, career process, right? Like, it's intense, it's creative. There's a lot of rejection. How do you deal with the rejection?
I think you kind of learn as you go. I don't think there's one set answer and one way to deal with it. Sometimes you feel like, oh yeah, I'm cool with that. But then deep down you're like, oh, they didn't. You know, there's a lot of promises, a lot of empty promises, songs that nearly make it or nearly get cut, or your favorite songs that everybody else hates. Do you know, so you just have to kind of like grow a thicker skin sort of thing. It's like, I actually...
How do you do that?
I've kind of like trained myself to be like, I don't believe it until I can stream it, or I can purchase it on iTunes, or I can actually have it myself on the phone and be like, cool, I can stream it for myself and I can see the credits and it's a real thing.
Were there any times where you were just like, I can't, I'm done. Like, this is just too
Yeah,
hard?
so many times. It's like, you kind of, because you always get so close. You always get so close. You know, everything is like, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. I almost get that session, or I almost get that song released. You know, and it's just hard to manage, you know, it's just hard to manage, but you just have to kind of like find a way to get yourself through it.
Social media and songwriting, social media and being a creator, how do you navigate it?
I don't know. Like, do you know? I'd like to know.
Still trying to figure it out.
If you know.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's one of those things where I feel like I've learned now that it's kind of like our resume now, isn't it? It's kind of like our CV to a point. And it's our way of communicating, you know, with others, rather than it just being Facebook and like back in the day, MySpace and all that sort of stuff. I feel like you can use it in a positive way, but I do feel like you do have to be really careful. I find myself that, well, you can't just be there scrolling and you're just constantly on it. You know?
Where do you think do you find it helps you more than it hinders you?
Yeah, I think so. I go on there and, you know, my algorithm now, I think because of all the things that I watch, is quite positive. You know, affirmations and like nice quotes and families doing amazing things and cute little kids doing stuff. Do you know what I mean? So you can, you know, your algorithm gets a bit more brighter, whereas before you just get bombarded with sad news and negative things and stuff. So, yeah.
Train your algorithm.
Yeah, you can train, yeah.
Great suggestion, train your algorithm.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was something
Yeah.
most probably subconsciously.
You say you want to do things that bring you joy, right? Like something that you have fun doing. Like, there's probably a lot of projects out there that, for whatever reason, your friends are doing, economic reasons, status, right? Like, you want to be a part of it, but you don't really like it. I mean, and then how does it affect you? Like, does that become an obstacle?
I think the more that you go through your career, you know, we're lucky enough to be able to make the decisions where we literally don't have to, you know, really do things that we don't want to do. Do you know what I mean? It's like one of those where you have to weigh it up. It's like, am I going to go and do that session? It's going to make me a bit sad, and people aren't that very nice anyway. And do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, but if you're an up-and-coming writer,
yeah,
Okay.
I think it
are you
is
saying
hard.
yes to everything?
I think you say yes to a lot of things, but then if I'd known what I know now, I'd be like, actually, you know, sometimes you give things a try, but then, you know, sometimes you get into situations where you're like, oh, actually, this is not fun. It's a bit rude. People are, you know, it's not really about, it's all ego and all this other stuff that's nothing to do with music. It's best like not to be
And it might
involved.
be that if it's something that you feel that way about it, it's usually probably not the thing you're going to be the best at.
Yes.
I would say. But I do think early on it's really important to say yes to a lot. Because that's how you find your people too.
Yeah,
Like the people that you
and I
love
think
working
sometimes as well, it's worth trying things as well. Sometimes you might, I think there's a lot of people's resumes and it's like, okay, they've done this, they've done that, but it doesn't mean that's all they've done and that's all they can do. So sometimes it's like, oh, I'm not going to work with blah, 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 because they do rock and I don't do rock. But then it's like you get into the room with this musician, you're like, oh my gosh, they can do dance music, they can do R&B, they can do Afrobeat. You know, a lot of creatives can do multiple genres. And
Right.
some people that you think, some people might say something about a writer or the way that they work and they don't get on with them, but then maybe you have a different connection with them. So I do think it is good to be very open and just be like, hey, I don't know what that new genre of music is, but you know, I'm interested, so give it a go. So I think that's good.
Thank you both for your time and your insights. Thank you, Kito. Thank you, Jin Jin. This is an important conversation. And, you know, obviously songwriters will continue to have songwriters' backs like we always do. So
Yep.
appreciate it.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.